Hello, today I'm here on this rather gorgeously warm first day of the Gregorian New Year, on the day 13 Tichash, to talk with you about the Trecena of Kawok, which will begin on the Gregorian day of the 2nd of January 2022. Now, it's kind of interesting because we sometimes get these kind of sync-ups within systems, and what I find particularly interesting is that for me the Trecena of Kawok is about birth and new beginnings. It was like about rebirth, and here we are with many people having put their intentions in for the change of the Gregorian year, about starting something new, about starting over sometimes with some things as well. And we could see that exactly as a key element of the Trecena of Kawok. So, if you're into your Gregorian calendar thing and you've been setting your New Year's intentions for 2022, then here's a little bit of extra energy. If you follow the sacred count primarily, then this is the opportunity to move out and into something new. So we've been through the Trecena of Kame. As I said, we're on this day 13 Tihash, on this final day of the Kame Trecena, and we're moving out of this period of death and transformation into this period of rebirth, of renewal, of life. And so what can we use it for? Well, for me, Kawok, the rainstorm, is very much about clearing the way. We see this every year when the rains actually come. Right now we're in the middle of dry season, and what we can see is that things start to get, well, right now they're still kind of nicely green. We actually had some very unseasonable rain a few weeks back, but right now things are starting to dry out. The debris is starting to pile up, the leaves are starting to pile up. And this will continue all the way through to somewhere around about mid to late April, when the first rains will start to come back. And what we see with the first big rain is it washes all of those leaves, all of that debris out, and makes everything new. You know that smell when it hasn't rained for a while and it rains and you get the petrichor, the smell of the earth, the fresh wet earth? We get that. And we see this as the renewal of the cycle, because right now, as I say, these hills are fairly green, but they're going to turn yellow within the next couple of months. And 2 weeks after the rain comes, the new life comes back. So it's seen as the midwife to the rebirth of, well, the maize, for one thing. So what can we focus on? How can we use the Trecena of Kawok? Well, as I said, if there is something new that you want to engage with in your life, this is the time to bring it in, because we're going to begin the Trecena on one Kawok. One representing birth and beginnings. Kawok representing the birth process, the bringing in of something new. You see how those two really line up rather nicely, right? And so this is a great opportunity to ring in the changes, as it were, to move out and leave behind what has been transformed, and to move in to the novelty, into the new time, into the new period, the new phase, to bring in something new into the world. Now, this process, of course, takes some time, and we can look at it as, what you might initiate might then take 260 days to come in, to be gestated before it's birthed. But tomorrow is to get onto that process. It's to get it moving, because we take the potential of one, and it's got all of this potential to birth something new into the world. Just needs a little bit of encouragement. Now, I often have this picture in my mind of the energy of Kawok being rather like a loving but stern grandmother, somebody who's going to help you through the birth process, but at the same time, I associate the Noel Kawok with what we could call tough love. It's like she's going to make sure that you push it through. When the storm comes, there's no resisting it. What has to leave has to leave. What has to come in has to come in. And that's that. Now she's doing it with the best will in the world. She's doing it to bring the new life in. But she's also dedicated to make sure it happens. And so when we combine that with the number one, the number one can sometimes represent hesitancy or uncertainty. And so you might be wondering, well, yeah, okay, I want to make these changes. I want to bring something new into the world, but how am I going to do it? Kawok, as a female healing essence, could also suggest to seek the advice of female healing or female counselors to help you to understand how you can bring that new potential into the world. So, as I say, it might not necessarily be kind of like you've got to go and take action today. You might be wanting to gather some understanding, gather some energy of how you're going to take action, to seek that counsel, to understand how you can birth something new, your new idea, your new life, your new whatever it might be into the world. From Hun Kawok, we're then going to go into two Ajpu. So Ajpu being the Nawal of the hero, being the Nawal of our divinity, the greatest that we can achieve within ourselves. And the number two can represent many things. It can represent relationships, it can represent lovers, and it can also represent self-sacrifice. And of course, if we are going to go on this path, if we really want to kind of like, let's say, be reborn with our divine essence kind of like fully at the fore, as it were, then chances are we're going to have to make some sacrifices. Just as we would have seen in the Kame Trecena, where we've got to, kind of like leave some stuff behind. We've got to transform some stuff. Ajpu is saying, right, okay, if you want to fulfill your divine purpose, sometimes there's some stuff that's not going to fit. And the number two can also represent choices. So whether it's choices or whether it's self-sacrifice, this is also could be seen about leaving something behind so that you can move closer to your divine purpose. You got to choose what serves you on your divine path, on your spiritual path, as it were, and what doesn't. What's going to work with you as this new thing is born into the world, and what needs to be maybe left behind. So it's about choosing your path, choosing your spiritual path in particular. From 2 Ajpu, we're then going to go into 3 Imox. So Imox, representing the lake, the great ocean, representing our collective consciousness, representing the dream world. And the number 3, representing the inner world, representing the home. So, of course, this is a day, I often see that 3 days can be very introspective in nature. They're great days to look within, possibly to look within. What dreams do you hold? What dream is taking you forward? What dream is going to empower and birth into this world those changes, those desires, those dreams that you have? Okay, so like the 3 Imox is really kind of like a day where we could see going inside as being a good thing. It's also, the 3 can represent home, so it could be seen as kind of like, what dreams do you have for your home, or maybe even just being in your home and feeling the consciousness of your home around you. There is also something I find quite interesting with 3 Imox, and that is that normally Imox can have some difficulties being too connected with everything else which is around it. And the 3 is really about going within. It's really about kind of like, sometimes the 3 has a little bit of a challenge connecting with what's going on around it. And so when you combine the 2, it's actually quite a good combination to help you to kind of like reassess what dreams are yours and what was coming from the collective. It's kind of like helps you to retain your sense of identity, regain your sense of identity maybe, but to help you to kind of like, let's say, be more detached from the collective consciousness so that you can understand really what's your stuff and what's their stuff, as it were. What's the stuff of others? What's the stuff of like the media or whatever it might be? And go back to what's going on truly inside of you. From 3 Imox, we're then going into 4 Ik. So Ik, the wind, Ik, the divine breath. A day of communication is often what we would see with Ik. A day of changes is another thing that we could see. So if we're taking this as a Trecena of birthing something new into the world, of course it's going to mean some changes are going to happen. Where are those changes going to happen? Well, on 4 Ik, it could represent the physical world. It could represent this material world. And so those changes might be enforced changes. They might be changes that you didn't necessarily choose. You're just going to have to deal with it because it's like there they are in your physical world. And it's up to you to adjust your sails to go where you want to go with those changes, because sometimes those changes can't be undone, you know? And so if you have no control over them, there's no point, how can I put it, getting upset about them. We just have to deal with it. Take the best out of it and move forward, because it's a change that brings new life. It's the wind that brings the new life. Now, the other thing that we could see with the 4 Ik day is that Ik can also represent very much our communication abilities. And the number 4 is a very down-to-earth number. So perhaps in this new period of rebirth, of bringing something new in, you need to have a conversation with somebody, and you need to have a down-to-earth conversation with somebody. The 4 Ik brings that stability in, and it allows us to talk with everyone, you know. It's kind of like it allows us to get whatever message it is that we might need to get across. From 4 Ik, we're then going to move into 5 Aq'ab'al. So Aq'ab'al, the sunset, the sunrise. Aq'ab'al, the time between day and night, the time between light and darkness. Aq'ab'al is the bridging, the conception, the moment between dream and reality. And 5 Aq'ab'al is about putting our work into it, right? It's kind of like, right, okay, we had this dream. Maybe we went inside on 3 Imox. We found that dream that we hold inside of us. Maybe that's guiding what we want to birth into the world, but now it's time that we've got to put some energy into it. And 5 Aq'ab'al gives us the ability to do just that. Aq'ab'al can also be seen as the light at the end of the tunnel, as it were. It's illuminating that which has been hidden in the darkness. So once again, if you want to bring your new concept out from your inner dream, if you want to bring it out into the world, 5 Aq'ab'al would be a great day to do it. But it might also suggest that you're really going to have to put a bit of effort into it. Sometimes the 5 days, we kind of like, we got something lined up for it, we think it's going to be okay, and then we find out maybe it took a lot more energy to bring it in than we would expect. Now, that might not necessarily be your most desirable thing, that it's going to be a bit hard work, but the 5 in the Mayan cross leads to the 13. And so for me, this is kind of like the promise that the work that we're going to put in will be highly rewarded. So it might take you a little bit of extra energy to shine your light onto that dream, to bring that new concept in on 5 Aq'ab'al. But ultimately, it would seem like that would be worth doing. So it's certainly kind of like using a little bit of energy to shine the light in the darkness and to reveal what has been hidden away, to bring that into the light. From 5 Aq'ab'al, we're then going into 6 Cat. So Cat, the Nawal of the net. Cat, catch and release. As always, I was going to say, if you're going to have a sort out, if you're going to have a spring clean or whatever it might be, then Cat days are always good days. Go through your net, see what works for you and see what doesn't work for you. Let go of the connection, let go of those things which are holding you back, the attachments maybe that are holding you back, so that you can make space in your net for more to come in. Now, on this day, 6 Cat, well, the 6, I see it as the physical 4 with the heart of the sky and the heart of the earth involved now. Okay, so it could work for looking through your physical world and seeing what you can let go of, and maybe receiving an inspiration from kind of like other places, as it were, as to like, right, yeah, I really don't need this, or I'd forgotten that I had this stashed at the back of the house or something like that. It's time to let go of it. It could also represent kind of things like mental limitations, things that kind of like those kind of like ideas that you might hold about yourself that you can't take into your new birthing process. You've got to let them go on the cat day. The other thing that we could see with the number 6 is it can represent family. And so if we see it from that point of view, we can also kind of like understand maybe this is something where you have to kind of like look at what would help your family to let go of the things which are maybe holding your family back from being all that they can be, as it were. And looking at the things that you can carry, that you can bring into your net, which are going to help to bring stability to your family. From 6 cat, we're then going to 7 can. So can, the nawal of the serpent. Can, the nawal of wisdom, of power. And 7 can sees that serpent sitting on top of the pyramid. And so what we could see with 7 can is this is about making choices. Which direction do you want to go? Maybe it's the time to finish off a wisdom path. Maybe it's time to come to a peak of that wisdom. Maybe it's something to do with the power that you have managed to create, that you've managed to gain from that wisdom path, or however that might be. And the 7 is going to give us a clear view of like where we can take it, what we want to do with it next. What are our options? I see that can could be seen as the life force energy. The life force energy that comes into the fertilized cells, the pulse, as it were, of the human being that comes in. And so 7 can is kind of like working with your life force energy, understanding how to use it, understanding how to share your wisdom. And here, making a choice of how you're going to do it. Maybe that several paths are laid out to you, several ideas are laid out to you about how you can share your wisdom to empower those around you. 7 can will be a good day to be making the choice of what serves my community and what empowers everyone. From 7 can, we're then going into 8 Kame. So 8 Kame, a celebration of the ancestors. The 8 days are often the ceremonial days here. The 8 days we'll be making our fire ceremony, and in particular we'll be sending our prayers to those who have moved into the other world in the last 260 days, and to our ancestors, to our friends and to our family who have moved into the other world. And so this is what we can, what we can physically do on the 8 Kame day, as it were. But there's something else with that. And when we see the 8, we see the 1 and the 7 coming together. The wholeness of the transformation. So 20 days before we started the Kame Trecena, we gone through that 13-day period, the Trecena. Then we add another 7 days on there at the beginning of the Kawok Trecena, until we get to the next Kame day. The 8 representing ends and beginnings are representing of the wholeness of the spiritual transformation, or the wholeness of the transformation that began on 1 Kame. So again, you might like to look back to the 1 Kame day. What were you hoping to transform? What fears might you think that you were facing? Well, here we're kind of like making the ceremony to give thanks for the wholeness of the transformative process that we've been through. We're here to give thanks to the ancestors and their guidance in that transformative process. From 8 Kame, we're then going into 9 Kech. So 9 Kech, another very interesting combination, because Kech can be often seen as a very masculine nawal, representing the mountain areas, the tree areas, the wilderness, representing the leaders. We could see it particularly representing spiritual leadership, and the number 9 being the number of life, being the number of the divine feminine. Now, if we put together feminine and spiritual leader, like, the immediate thing that comes into my mind is the tarot card, the High Priestess, as an example of kind of the 9 Kech. And so this is a balancing of the energy of the wilderness with our life. It's about going and getting our life force energy by integrating ourselves with the wilderness, by taking a walk in the forest, by taking a walk in the mountains, and revitalizing ourselves, drawing that life force energy to ourselves from the wilderness. And of course, this is something which is going to help us in our newly birthing process. As we go further through, we can also see that this is the day which could represent the female spiritual leader. So this is a day for empowerment of women from the wilderness in particular, but also possibly a day to once again seek the counsel of the female spiritual leaders within your community. From 9 Kech, we're then going into 10 Anil. So Anil, this day of goldening, this day of ripening, this day of receiving that which we have been growing. It's the day of harvesting. And here we see it with the number 10, the hands coming together, the community. So we could see with that 10 Anil could be a very, very beneficial day to get together with your community to help whatever projects or plans that need ripening. Now, obviously we're in this Kawok Trecena, and we're bringing something new into the world. And sometimes, when we're creating something new, when we're bringing something new in, when we've got this big task, we might need a bit of a helping hand. 10 Anil is definitely the day to go out and see how you can help out, but how you can also be helped out by those in your community, helping each other to ripen and bringing the best out of our community as we work together to bring that new, to bring that change, to bring that birth into the world. From 10 Anil, we go into 11 Toch. So Toch days are to give back. Anil days we receive the harvest. Toch days we tithe a bit of it back. We give it to where it's needed. And as always, I'm going to suggest on a Toch day that if you've got something to spare, then the donation to Odin would be very, very helpful for many, many people here. So what else can we do? Well, the number 11 we can see as working in many different ways, many different areas. And it might bring things that, like, in from what we might say, bring things in from left field, things that are unexpected. And Toch can represent payments, it can represent debts as well. And so really when we look at it, 11 Toch might bring you a surprise in the post of an unpaid bill or something like that. But it's also a time when you might also choose to go through, let's say, you're kind of like your mail shelf and see if there's anything that you've got outstanding that you'd forgotten about. Because it's like the 11 is searching in other places for things that we might need to pay off in order to keep us into balance. Now, I also see it with the Kawok energy. It's kind of like we're going into this new phase. We need to be free of any debts that we might be holding, karmic or whatever. And so 11 Toch gives us the opportunity to remember something from, maybe it was way out there, way long ago or something like that. So, I still need to pay that. Gives us the opportunity to pay that off and bring the balance back to our world. From 11 Toch, we're then going into 12 Tz'i. So Tz'i, the Nawal of faith and loyalty, of unconditional love. Tz'i, about justice. And here we see it with the number 12. The number 12 representing all of our life's experiences. And so it's using our life experiences to bring out that unconditional love, to bring out that faith in our lives, in the people around us, to bring out the loyalty, the understanding of it. So, Tz'i, yes, it can also get distracted. It can also get, let's say, distracted by its senses. And here we see the number 12, a very high number. It might represent things from the past because it's bringing together all of those life experiences. So maybe there's some things from the past that still tempt you. Maybe there's some vices from the past which are still present in your life that you might want to address in order to go into this rebirth process, in order to go through and come out the other side, is looking back and saying, okay, what experiences do I have that can help me to overcome the vices which I might still have in my life? And from 12 Tz'i, we end the Trecena on 13 bats. So, bats, the creative energy, the creative genius. The number 13, the ancestors, This should be an extremely creative and possibly an extremely interesting and fun day, because bats, the energy of bats is often seen as kind of a lot of fun to be around. And so 13, when we've got that coming in, can make it extremely powerful. It's a great day to receive messages from the ancestors, because those 13 days suggest that the spirit world is close, suggest that the ancestors are close. And so we can see that whatever masterpiece you're creating, whatever art you're creating, you might ask for the assistance of the ancestors in this process to bring that creativity to completion. You might find yourself working with the art of your ancestors, for instance, or you might find their hand, their energy appearing within the creation that you make. So 13 bats, as I say, is a supremely inspired day for any creative projects which you might be having going on right now. So that's the end of the Kawok Trecena. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you again in 13 days' time for the Trecena. Thank you.